So I'm introducing Reneum to everyone today. So we believe in two things: that climate change is the #1 biggest problem of our generation, and that blockchain is the #1 most important technological innovation of our generation. So Reneum leverages blockchain to drive the energy transition, meaning we sit at the intersection of the biggest market and the most important technology. So we are a climate marketplace and economy powered by the GREN token. Reneum's marketplace connects individuals, companies, and investors to climate-related projects, enabling them to directly influence climate initiatives and power the energy transition. So the GREN token is our inaugural instrument, backed by megawatt hours of clean energy generated in emerging markets exclusively. Think of it like Amazon starting with books. GREN serves as a direct revenue stream to project owners, much like tariff or subsidy to help with development and operations, and is based on the concepts of legacy environmental markets like EACS and carbon, with a goal of directing climate finance to regions that really need it the most. So let's zoom out a bit, big picture. Why are we here? Well, climate change is the biggest problem of our generation, as I said before, but structural friction means that most people actually cannot directly influence the energy transition, and specifically renewable energy adoption. So, as has already been echoed today in a previous talk I watched, ESG has evolved from its position as a footnote on a shareholder report to being a key metric in a bottom line. The next generation will definitely grow up in a world where climate change is not an option to debate, but a looming presence in their collective psyche. They will also be Web3 natives, meaning that their identities and values will be as much in the digital as physical realm, which creates a new opportunity to establish a digital green identity, like the GREN. So we are betting that the currency of the future will be green, and that GREN is creating a social movement to support a new world. So the opportunity. So the world is definitely going green, obviously, but it's moving very slowly. Ultimately, our energy futures are hinged on whether emerging economies manage this transition successfully. So annual clean energy investment right now is at about 150 billion in emerging economies, and needs to accelerate to more than $1 trillion, more than 7x in the next 8 years to reach net zero emissions. The reason they're so behind is that they can't access international financing, mostly due to credit risks, political volatility, vested interests. And while emerging markets have about 2/3 of the world's population, they have 1/6 of clean energy and 1/10 of global wealth, meaning it's just easier for them to default to fossil fuels as their economies develop when fossil fuels have a much lower upfront capex. So they have tough choices to make. So even well-intending individuals, companies, governments who strive to power their operations or their countries with clean energy, they are just met with structural friction. So just some quick stats on the fossil fuel space. Fossil fuel subsidies are still more than 10x that of renewables even today. Heavy regulations in developing markets, especially in the kind of centralized, monopolized economies, really favor vested interests in coal and gas, which means that as they urbanize, they're building out new fossil fuels. It's just a reality. So with feed-in tariffs declining or not even existing in many of these markets, and carbon markets, though well-intending, really do suffer from a lot of fraud, data manipulation, and frankly, really cumbersome user experiences that, you know, if you've ever used a carbon registry, it looks like it's built in the 90s. It just doesn't work for this new generation. And we also believe that punishing bad behavior, while it works sometimes, we really need a carrot. We need to establish a meaningful incentive to change rather than just punishing people. So we see an opportunity for a new ecosystem here. So Reneum's GREN token is based on EACs, environmental instruments, which are subsidizing renewable energy. They act as bridge finance in the form of direct subsidies. They capitalize existing operations and help build out new ones. And they provide, in doing so, they provide a secure revenue stream to establish bankability and actually send a price signal to capital markets to invest into the new economies. So as instruments for climate finance, EACs are purchased generally by energy sinners, think multinational corporations, sometimes countries as well, often individuals who operate on fossil fuels but would like to operate on renewables or have set a target to do so. But the reality is, in addition to the structural friction of true renewable procurement, there's actually structural friction in the environmental markets as well. There's a chronic undersupply. You can see this in the price appreciation of these instruments growing by a factor of 10 in 2020 alone. And actually, if you look at the post COP26 commitments, which happened just in November, the world's 20 largest oil and gas companies promised to offset their fossil fuel pollution, which requires more than 6 times the global supply of these credits currently. So obviously a bull market is coming. Our thesis is that a major cause of this undersupply is the friction in the actual market infrastructure. So centralization, opacity, bureaucracy, all these things that blockchain is perfectly suited to solve. So enter the GREN token. So GREN is similar to these environmental instruments. It's purchased by environmentally minded companies, crypto miners, individuals to neutralize their footprint. But it's different because it's targeting Web3 specifically. So it's native Web3 token. We went back to first principles and thought, what is the purpose of this instrument, of this whole market? And it's really to drive investment into the companies and the markets that need it most. So how can we do that using blockchain? We created an entirely decentralized token. So it's targeted specifically for Bitcoin miners, the future of the Web3 economy. As we move into the metaverse, we're going to use a lot more energy. And if we don't do that, that's green. It's going to be a big problem. So we also distinctively added climate score, which is new to our instrument, which basically gives a relative rating on the environmental impact of each project you invest into. So it's fully transparent. It's not greenwashing in the sense of, kind of traditional carbon that it can be. We used independent oracles to ascertain the climate score, but it helps investors quantify the materiality of their investment, which is really important for reputational risks or potentially advantages as well.
Brianna, just a heads up that we're quickly running out of time.
Oh, okay. All right, sorry. So I'll move on then. Token mechanics. So just getting an overview on the token. So buyers purchase the GREN on exchanges, fungible tokens on exchanges, and they swap it for NFTs, which are like a verified green symbol that they can use in their profile pictures. They can use as a signal to, their entire ecosystem, acting as sort of a proof of impact. And this gives them access to the club membership, which we call the ice bear, which is a green polar bear. And he allows you access to Discord channel, which is an invite-only community connecting on climate projects, allowing you to vote on climate projects, and allowing you to participate with a like-minded community. So I think just kind of touching on the demand really quickly, the current Bitcoin mining and trading or transaction volume is about 333 terawatt hours of renewable or of energy, which translates to 323 million GRENs. And right now, that's almost the entire volume of the world supply of these credits. So, there's a huge demand, it far outstrips supply. Kind of going into the token fundamentals. GREN's backed by megawatt hours, which means it has protection against devaluation. It has a real world price tag and a real world natural floor. So it insulates buyers against, speculative bubbles that we're seeing in the crypto space. It's a safer investment than, many of the kind of hype coins you're seeing. Our target market is all emerging economies everywhere in the world outside of the developed countries with, a huge penetration of renewables. And just touching on, why us, our background. So we are renewable energy developers and asset owners by trade. We've been in the renewable space for more than 20 years, our parent company, Syndicated Renewable Energy. So, and I actually personally managed our carbon and EAC trading desk prior to Reneum being built out. So we're very familiar with how these instruments work and the real market economy and the need. And just a heads up, Renewable or Syndicatum is only operating in emerging markets as well, all across APAC. So we really understand the economics of this landscape.